Well, good morning again, and welcome for Fathers Part 2. So last week we talked about how our fathers on earth are a blueprint for the Father in heaven. How our Father here teaches us what to expect from God the Father. And I talked about my dad, who wasn't a Christian, but he was a very good father. And I talked about how, at times he was a dad, at times he was a daddy, and at times he was a bit of a Father Christmas too. He treated us, gave us things, but each one was in its time. He was a father also. He disciplined, he directed, he taught, and he did things with us. We talked about how the Father loves, Psalm 103, as a father has compassion on his children. So not too far. My father did discipline, but he did it in love, not in anger. No explosions. We knew we would be in trouble if we did certain things. I remember at school being asked, would you like 5 of the cane or would you like us to tell your dad? Yeah. I held my hand up fast, as you could say. 5 of the cane was better than my dad knowing. And it wasn't because he would physically discipline us. He did from time to time. But actually, the number of times he physically disciplined us, I can count on one hand. It was when he said, "I'm so disappointed in you." That was the real killer. When he was disappointed in us and our behaviour. And isn't that just like when we stand in front of the Father in heaven? Do we want to get into heaven just by the skin of our teeth with God's disappointment in his eyes? Or do we want to be told, "Well done, good and faithful servant"? And it's our fathers that guide us to be able to know what to do. Start children off on the way they should go. And even when they are old, they will not turn from it. It was my father who taught me what integrity was. It was easy for me to become a Christian in adult life because of his teachings. I knew what the right and wrong thing to do were. Not because he had told me, not because he had disciplined me, partly. Each of those things, but also because he had shown me by his actions, shown me when he stood up for the right thing himself. I mean, as I said, he wasn't a Christian, but I remember being at the WRP, the Workers' Revolutionary Party conference in Blackpool, okay? And I remember as an 11-year-old standing, "We'll keep the red flag flying here." Not what I now believe, but he had integrity and he stood by his values. And that is important to children. It made me and my brothers who we are today. My dad told me he didn't think I should bring my children up in church. He disapproved for many years. But my father I had left behind for my husband, and we had to make our decisions by thinking and applying what we thought, and that is God's word. And in the end, just the week before he died, he said to me, "I was wrong. You were right. You've brought the girls up well." Do you know how much that meant to me? It meant everything. And how much will it mean to us and as fathers and the fathers in the house to stand before the Father and know that we have done well. And I mentioned about fathers needing to be present. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. I wonder why that's in the Bible. Because it's so easy for fathers to exasperate children. Because none of us are perfect. So the Bible tells us, gives fathers that direction. And it's also a modern disease, this lack of presence of the father. In today's society, we've put masculinity down so much that boys don't know who they are. They think that they've got to be feminine, talk in a funny voice, and skip down the road. Yeah, but they don't. Fathers need to stand there and be that role model and hold their shoulders high and show that masculinity is not what's been labelled toxic masculinity today. Masculinity is half of what God created, and it's there for a purpose and a reason. And our boys and our girls need to know that masculinity is from God, and that masculinity is right, and that masculinity is useful and purposeful and so much more. We cannot do without the fathers. The world will try to tell us we can. And I talked about why that happens today. And it goes back to the 80s and 90s, the rise in divorce rate, the rise in single mothers, parent households, the lack of fathers physically, but the lack of fathers spiritually as well. Men who stay at work scrolling on their phones for their downtime. Men who go home and just scroll on their phones because it's easier. It's boring watching the kids' programmes. Yeah, it can be. But it also can be a talking point. You can bring things up with your children. I remember doing exactly that. There were some things I watched when the girls were kids that I am glad I do not have to watch again. However, because you give of your time and your presence. And it's not about them watching what you want. It's about watching things together and including them. I've known fathers who buy TVs in kids' rooms so they can go and watch their things away from them. Absolutely the worst thing you could ever do. Never, ever, ever have TVs and technologies in kids' rooms so they can go away and play on them. Have them in the family room, where even when you're making tea or just passing through, you can look and see what they're doing. You can direct. I don't like that, turn that off, get something else on. Computers, terrible things. People don't know what their children are doing. You don't even have to sit with them, but if it's in the public area, the family area, it is policed by itself, because it's things they won't put on in front of you. But if they're up there and locked in that room, you have no idea what they are doing. Yeah? Be present. Fathers discipline, and I've already said that one. And fathers are spiritual leaders, Psalm 78:4. We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. We will tell the next generation. Tell them how they should be. Tell them what upstanding and integrity is. I know people who use the words integrity and they have no clue what it means. I've got integrity for 30 seconds while you're saying it. Your actions say something else. Yeah? I've got integrity. I know the right thing to do. Oh, April. Yeah, the guy that mended the photocopy, he's left his code in. We can get free photocopying. And I was first in the queue, and there's like 8 other people getting excited about the free photocopying. I looked at them all and I said, do you know, I'll go last. And they said, why? I said, because I can't take that guy's photocopying. That guy has left his code in by accident. The company's going to check it off his wage. I can't do that to the guy. I said, it's not free photocopying, somebody's going to pay. And I can't steal that photocopying. But hey, you guys want to go ahead? You all go ahead of me. It's fine. I don't mind. I'm not going to tell anyone else what to do. Well, they all had a grumble. Well, we can't do it now, can we? How can we do it now? That never occurred to us. And it never occurred to them because they don't have God, they don't have a conscience, and they don't know what true integrity is. And it's up to the fathers to put that into their children. Now moving on to number 7. moving on to number 7, fathers protect the children. Okay? Fathers stand first. Men, women and children off the ship first. I was watching The Chase last night. He said, which class of people lost the most lives coming off the Titanic? And there was 3 options: first class men, second class women, third class women. And the ladies picking chose third class women. Because, we're all told that when they got off the Titanic, there were most casualties in the third class. But actually that wasn't true. It's actually true that the first class men were the biggest percentage to die. In numbers it might have been third class, but in the percentages it was the first class men. Because they allowed women and children to go first. They protected. Now, we're all the same, aren't they? Get out my way. That's what men would say. I'm going anywhere. Yeah? What did I used a really old-fashioned term. Livy-livered. Livy-livered. Yeah? Because the father stands and protects the family. And today's world, that's about ensuring not too much screen time. Being purposeful about what you want them to do and reflecting that in your own behaviour. You see, boys will follow their fathers and girls will choose a man to marry who is like their father. Now I'll let that sink in a minute. Yeah? Are you a good father? Are you a good man? Would you want your girls to choose somebody like you? Isn't that a sobering thought? But it's the truth. Integrity and hard work. That's what my father taught me. Integrity and hard work. Psalm 91:11. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all ways. As you guard your family, God will guard you. That's how it works, coming down. Proverbs 14:26. Whoever fears the Lord has a security fortress, and for their children it will be a refuge. My story about the school. Do you want the cane or shall we tell your father? There was a healthy fear of the Father in me. And we need that to restrain our behaviour or help us restrain our own behaviour. And we need that to help our children restrain their behaviour. If your children do not see restraint in the Father, they will not learn restraint. If they don't see you sacrificing, they will not learn sacrifice. If they do not see you serving, they will not learn serving. And yet, the Bible is clear. The greatest in the kingdom is the servant. It's not about who we are, it's about what we want our children to be. I had a really good father, a really good role model, but my mother was absent. Now, it didn't stop me mothering, but it did mean I had to be more purposeful. I had to think about what I wanted and what result I wanted, and then have the behaviours to get that result from my children. Yeah? Where did I want my children to be? And sometimes that meant pretty strict discipline. And sometimes that meant love and cuddles. Yeah? God gives you the children that you can manage. Your children are a gift from God for you to bring up. Nobody else. Fathers decide how the discipline in your household is going to work. And fathers decide when the treats are going to happen. And fathers decide really how it's all going to run. And then mothers do it. Yeah? It's only a joke. Yeah? But it leads us to the value of sacrifice. Fatherhood requires sacrifice of our time, of our interests, of time, interest, sometimes food. There are families out there who can only buy unlimited food. So the best goes to the children because they are growing and developing. Father's sacrifice, you know. Now not long after we were married, Doug used to like to play golf. So he would go out to golf on Saturdays and come back about 2-3 o'clock, and then he would go out to church on Sundays, because I wasn't a Christian at the time, and come back at 2-3 o'clock, and then he'd do other church things. And when we had children, we had a conversation. Look, it's too much. I want you at home, one of those two. It's too much. I need your help, and the children need to see you more. So Doug sacrificed golf, a game that he loved to play. But he sacrificed golf for the family. And that's what fathers do. My own father often sacrificed his own needs. And it's not easy, you know. In moments of tiredness and frustration, remember what is important. Discomfort for you in the moment is 1,000,000 times less important than your children and their eternity. And I'll say that again. Your children and their eternity. A good father reflects the Father in heaven, and it will be easy for them to see the Father in heaven. And remember those statistics. If the mother and father come together, 74% of children stay in church. If the father alone brings them, 67% stay in church. If the mother alone brings them, only 37% stay in church. It is stark. You need them to stay in church for their eternity. There's no greater blessing than having my girls in church. And that's because of the way their father reflected the Father in heaven when they were growing up. A father builds character. The way a father lives and values, he models that behaviour, and it deeply influences the growth of the children. All 3 of my brothers are still extremely left-wing. I have to tell you, they are very, very left-wing politically. And it has a lot to do with those WRP conferences and singing the red flag was flying here. My father modelled behaviours that everybody picked up on. Okay? As a girl, I saw different things perhaps than my brothers did. So I chose a husband with integrity. My brothers followed their father. Your sons will follow you. Do you want them to be controlled, functioning, good Christian men when they grow up? And again, as I say, do you want their daughters to choose good husbands? The old rhyme, sticks and stones, isn't correct. Words seep deep into the heart, into the soul of your child. Well done. Yes, you tell them when you're wrong, but you build them up at other times also. Tell them they're doing well. Don't put fear into their lives like the world will. The world's, I saw a film the other day, and the young person in it said, my parents and grandparents destroyed this world and there's nothing left for me. I thought, my goodness me, what a viewpoint. But a lot of young people, that's what they're hearing. Climate change and degeneration and all the rest of it. And it's so untrue. God made a wonderful world. There's millions of resources. It's just that a few people are stealing a lot of them and they're not using some. Because it's not run God's way. But God will come and it will be run his way. There's much hope. You're not an accident. You're not some genetic misfortune that just happened, according to Darwin. You were made wonderfully and fearfully put together in your mother's womb. And that's what fathers need to communicate to their children. You were made on purpose by God, no accidents. I said this to a young man in my class. He was gay, And I said, God didn't make an accident making you a feminine man. He said, but you disagree with gay lifestyle. I said, yes, but I disagree with lots of lifestyles. God doesn't want you to have that lifestyle, but he made you a feminine guy. I said, but you can still be a feminine heterosexual guy. Yeah, he made you who you are. No mistakes. You don't need to go through any operations. There's no mistakes. God made you who you are. Celebrate who you are. See, the Bible is really the only truly inclusive way. Always accused of being bigots. But actually it's the Bible that tells you that we are one race. Not many. There's no different races and putting people down. The Bible is the only inclusivity book of teaching on this earth. White, black, everybody's the same. God made us all wonderfully, fearfully, and in his image. And fathers need to teach that to their children. Through demonstration, through acts of love, through sacrifice, and through telling them. Proverbs 20:11, even small children are known by their actions. So is their conduct really pure and upright? You need to examine yourself. A quote from Aristotle, give me a child until he is 7 and I will show you the man. Needs to go into them, and it needs to go into them young. But also don't hammer them when they do things wrong. Guide them properly. You know, the old saying, isn't there? You catch more bees with honey than a stick. You know? My father, yeah, I was hit with his belt and I was hit with his slipper. And I loved him dearly. But as I said, I can count those times on one hand. They were for serious offences, you know. And as a child, it seemed so unfair when he did. He was terrible. I was, you know what kids are like. Absolutely terrible you are when you discipline them. But it's good for them, you know. And it shows them the right way to go. And you have to decide where your line is, you know. He used it once, I think there's about 3 times I was smacked in that way. Yeah, once was when we were all at the shop and my brothers shoplifted some sweets. And that was it. Big no-no. Big no-no. We all got the belt. Yeah. But did I remember not to steal sweets from the shop? Oh, I did. Did I remember I don't want my dad to know, I'll have the cane instead? Oh, yes. Yeah? There's a fear of the Father. We have it of the Holy Father, they need it of their Father, but they also need the love. Our Holy Father directs us in love so we don't burn in hell for eternity. And that's the same thing for fathers. Timothy 4:12, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, conduct, love, faith and purity. And that's where you want your sons and daughters to be. Young but understanding. So, summary. A father is essential. Not nice, not an extra, not useless as this world would tell us. Essential. 100%, absolutely non-negotiable, essential. Now, I'm not putting single mothers down, you know, it happens and they do their best. But I'm not saying that that's better. What I'm saying is the father is better. That's the best. That's the ideal. The father is essential and he needs to be present, physically and spiritually. Yeah? When I grew up, there were no phones. Yeah? So if we were at home, we were at home. We might be doing different stuff. And remember, I said that Scrabble, every Friday night we played Scrabble. One of my brothers always tried to find a 7-letter word. It could take an hour on his turn. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, it was terrible. It was non-negotiable. My dad did not let us choose whether we were having to play or not. We played together and we learned a lot from it. A father determines a child's character, and he needs to be purposeful, thinking. What does the Bible say? What do I do in this situation? You know, no anger outbursts, no discipline that isn't thought through. And you know, if you do feel yourself getting angry as a father, send them to a room for 2 minutes while you think what you're going to do. I remember my dad doing that to me. It was torture. Sat up there wondering what on earth was going to happen because of this. It was part of the punishment. It was great, yeah. A father teaches children how to treat others, including their mother. A father respects their mother, the children will respect their mother. A father says thank you, children will say thank you. A father does the dishes, children will do the dishes. Yeah? A father takes the rubbish out, it won't be long before you can just let them do it themselves. You know, because they will watch and they will learn. Put the bins out, take them, wheel them up the driveway. I'm thinking of Caleb now. Wheeling his bins up the driveway, brilliant, let them do it. Cut the grass, they might cut themselves. My dad gave me a blowtorch when I was 10, and I was stripping a door off, you know. Did I burn myself? Yes. Did I burn myself more than once? No. You know, today's world is too focused on what may or may not be. Too focused on health and safety. It is sucking all the fun out of the world. You know? Yeah? Oh, there's a yellow weather warning. We never had yellow weather warnings years ago. What on earth's one of those? Yellow weather warning, stay home. Why? It's windy. Big deal. I remember once it was so windy going in my friend's house that I think it was Heather was about 3, and she literally went up like a kite in this gust of wind. It's a good job I held on to her, you know. But we didn't think yellow weather warning, stay home. We just thought, oh, it was windy today. Yeah. Treat people how you want to be treated. Treat people how you want your children to treat people. Now, isn't that different? The world, treat people how you want to be treated. So self-focused all the time. The Bible, treat people how you want your children to treat people. So different. So very different. The focus, outward. The world focus, inward. Our focus, outward. And a father sacrifices. And we've already said about that. So thank you for listening. And I hope that was fine.